Subscribe to my channel. Your one click means the world to me. Folded hands. The mirror dome over Sarah Spire didn't just reflect light. It flattened reality. Under the cold, white artificial sky, shadows disappeared, and people glimmered like polished objects. Music drifted at a precise volume, designed to suppress private thought. Frank Thorne stood at the edge of the platform, a dark figure against pristine glass walkways suspended over the turquoise ocean miles below. He wasn't here for champagne or social climbing. He was a botanical curator, a man who spent his life closing ecological loops in the upper gardens. A quiet, dirty work that kept the sterile city breathing. Tonight, his presence was mandatory. On the central plinth, the host, hair slick as black glass, unveiled the merchandise. She stood barefoot, her yellow skin glowing faintly, white hair cascading to her waist. The crowd saw a product conditioned for compliance. Frank saw the fracture point. Years as a deep space scout taught him to spot the difference between serenity and managed panic. Her knuckles were white. Her eyes scanned the exits. She wasn't peaceful. She was enduring. Frank stepped forward, and the crowd instinctively parted. Care inspection. The term was legal, archaic, and deeply uncomfortable. It forced the transaction into the physical realm. He walked onto the heated platform. Heat radiated from her, almost tangible. "I'm Frank," he said, voice low enough to slip under the music. "Siren," she whispered, "a name and anchor. If I buy you," Frank continued, studying her eyes, "I don't use you." Confusion flickered across her face, followed by sharp suspicion. Kindness in the city was usually a trap. Frank didn't wait for belief. He approached a private console and entered a code the elites had forgotten. Article 52D, the Private Welfare Clause. It reclassified a purchasable asset as a dependent under sponsorship. Expensive. Irreversible. Social capital burned to ash. By the time he returned, the transaction was complete. The host looked ready to kill, but cameras rolled. Frank cut the leash before the handler could snap it on. "Not needed," he said flatly. "Walk with me." They left the gala in silence, crossing the glass sky bridges. She stayed one step behind, in the blind spot where trinkets and things hid. When the lift doors sealed, shutting out the world, the dynamic shifted. "You can leave in the lobby," Frank said. "No one will stop you." She stared, still and sharp as a blade. "No one says that. I'm not from here. I don't belong. They'll mark you for using 52D. Let them." They entered his sanctuary. The greenhouse loft hit like a shockwave, warm, humid, heavy with the scent of wet soil and viral citrus hybrids. It smelled like life. The hum of irrigation pumps replaced the city's electronic whine. Frank settled into his routine with the precision of a man who preferred plants to people. He offered her food, bright orange fruit and flatbread. She ate with trembling intensity, waiting for the command, the price. It never came. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why buy me if you won't use me?" Frank sliced fruit, steady rhythm. "Because I've seen what happens when no one does. You live. That's the only requirement." The following days were a study in decompressing a pressurized vessel. Frank slept on the balcony, giving her the mezzanine, distance proving what words could not. He taught her the plants. She learned to trim the suckers from the vines, hands moving with delicate precision that mirrored his own. They worked in silence, the rhythm of the garden anchoring them. But the system did not relent. A notification arrived with the inevitability of a storm, a routine inspection. "They'll take me back," she whispered, fear cracking her voice for the first time. "Not if they can't prove you're what they sold," Frank replied. "We build a wall they can't climb. We give them a paper trail." He pulled up the registry. They didn't lie, they recontextualized. Botany assistant. Title implying agency. Siren signed the logbook, handshaking, then studying. The ink became the first line of defense. "Make the numbers undeniable," Frank told her. "To them, you are numbers on a slate." The morning of the review arrived. The greenhouse was mercilessly bright. 2 gray-coated, dead-eyed inspectors arrived, scanning for chains, fear, or subtle cues of ownership. They turned to Siren. "State your name." She stood by the citrus tower, barefoot but grounded. Not at Frank, at them. "Siren. Role? Botany assistant. Duties?" Her voice was calm, precise. The pH levels, pruning cycles, harvest times. She detailed the cleaning of mist nozzles and yield documentation. Truth, not script, flowed from her. The inspectors paused. This was not the behavior of a pleasure animal. It was the boredom of a civilian employee. Any behavioral incidents? One officer asked, almost disappointed. None, she said. Then she lifted her chin, a millimeter of defiance. I chose these tasks. Silence stretched, thick and heavy. The female inspector glanced at Frank, then back at the tablet. She tapped the screen. Click. The board approved permanent personhood status under Section 52 declassification. Civilian resident. They left as quickly as they arrived. Siren stood frozen in the center of the room. The verdict hung like air too large to fully grasp. She turned slowly, eyes on the vines, the glass, the man leaning against the counter. They can't take me back, she said, testing the words. No, they can't sell me. No, Frank confirmed. She let out a sound half-laugh, half-sob, pressing her hands to her face. The cage was gone. The silence of the greenhouse changed. It was no longer a hiding place. It was a home. What happens now? She asked, lowering her hands, eyes wet but clear. Now, Frank said. You decide what your life is. She walked toward him, across the warm glass floor, stopping close enough for him to feel her presence, the reality of her existence. She placed a hand over his chest, above his heart. I want this, she said softly. This place. You hear us. Frank covered her hand with his own. A scout who had spent a lifetime watching crews dissolve in the crushing dark of space. He knew the value of what remained. Then it's yours, he said. Outside, the city lit up, a sprawling grid of artificial stars. But inside the glass walls, among the breathing vines and the scent of earth, the story wasn't about what was bought or sold. It was about what was chosen. Please follow my channel for more videos. One click from you can change my life.